You don't know how much pleasure it gives me to say this. It's Dave Day, and it's going to be Dave Day all week because I'm happy to have Dave Seaman, Standard Speaker sports editor, as our guest for our sports feature this week. We have a lot of catching up to do. They've been busy at the Standard Speaker, even though there's no local sports going on. They've had some great stuff. So, Dave, I appreciate your time coming in today. As always, I've missed you, sir. First off the bat, I was going through some past issues of the Standard Speaker, catching up on articles, and I noticed your Mother's Day column for your mom, who actually had COVID-19, battled this, made it through. You just mentioned all the strong women in your life and reflected on that a little bit in sports. I don't know if you just wanted to hit on that, maybe some points. I think everybody should go out there and read this article, though, on standardspeaker.com. Your mom's a very strong woman.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I draw a lot of inspiration from her. And like you said, the other women in my life, my grandmothers, my aunts, sisters-in-law, and certainly my wife, they all play a strong role in my life. And, a lot of them have helped shape me to the man that I am today. And when my mother, was afflicted with this, she didn't know what it was in the beginning. And it just rendered her helpless. And you just, what can you do to help her? And you really couldn't do anything. That's the tough part about this whole disease is not knowing what's going to happen, the unknown, and then what happens next. I mean, you're just left in limbo there, and taking things. And it happened Easter week too. That's one of her favorite weeks of the year when it happened back in April, and she had really knocked her out of commission for a while, and then as thankfully she made the recovery, and slow recovery. She's still recovering. It's a process. But once she started getting, out of the woods, so to speak, a little bit, and, coming to a little bit more, being more like herself, and I knew Mother's Day was coming up, and which also happened to be my birthday the same day, too. And I said, well, I could make a piece out of this. I do want to pay my respect to her. And, I guess a lot of the feelings that I had, I was able to channel that into my writing.
During this time, you guys have had great articles in the Standard Speaker. Read the one about Dave and his mother, but there also was one, Bob Gaetano, photographer for you, also just an all-around great guy, great writer. He actually wrote the article. There was a parade for Henry Kopczynski.
Never forget playing against him, and I was part of a touchdown play that was a very controversial play at the end of the game, and I just remember Henry going ballistic. But a few years after that, I got to know him pretty well. I got to know some of his sons pretty well too. He was a big booster of the then Freeland Whippets when they were in high school. And when that school closed and merged with Hazleton and West Hazleton become Hazleton area, Henry became a big Hazleton area Cougar booster, especially those kids that played for him. And you might remember the name Nate Eachus. I mean, he was one of those players too. And I just met Henry was tickled pink that I was able to get in touch with him after Nate made his pro debut. And when he saw his success, Henry felt that success too. He felt like he contributed to, and the kids that never played high school football too. He touched them, and he touched their families, and he has a big family himself too. But if you knew him, you were part of his extended family, and to reward him for his 93rd birthday, you just saw the smile on his face, and the smile on his grandkids' faces. The pictures that were in the newspaper too. It just shows a lot of the love that people have for Henry Kopczynski.
You said your readers are really enjoying. I'm one of the readers. I'm enjoying too the flashbacks you've been doing. It just so happened to be the week we featured Joe Maddon here on SSPTV News. I think you had two past articles by Ray Saul about games Joe Maddon was involved in. One a no-hitter and one the District 11 title game in 1971 against Northampton. Dave, I want you to talk a little bit about these. I was talking about some of the teammates I didn't realize Joe played with, but I love this line from Ray Saul, great sports reporter at the Standard Speaker. Joe Maddon, a Husky junior right-hander with the poise of a veteran, pitched and batted HHS to a 4-1 conquest of Northampton. That's just great, taking it back. I love that writing there.
When I saw that we were going to be shut down, not just for a week or so, a little bit, I said, well, here's an opportunity to use these stories. They're from our paper. And I think people will receive these well, to give people some local copy, something to latch onto in these trying times. And I think that's accomplished that. I think we have gotten a lot of positive feedback from these stories, especially the people that were involved in these games. The Joe Gavio. Joe Gavio was a teammate of Joe Maddon. He's one of those teammates too, a third baseman too. And you talk about Joe Maddon, and you just talk about the poise, and how much did that carry on to the rest of his career then? Like being a poise under pressure, and the hard work that it took to get for that team, still one of the best baseball teams that this area has ever produced. The sad part about that is back in that day, you didn't have a state playoff system. But the PIAA didn't have baseball. You ended at the district. So who knows how far that team would have gone. But, you know, you had three really, really good pitchers in Ron Resnick and Joe, of course, and Bernie Strachko, three outstanding pitchers. The lineup was deep. Ed Morgan was, in his prime, getting that team and that program set up.
Everyone else is talking about it. Why shouldn't we talk about it too? They just wrapped up the Last Dance documentary featuring Michael Jordan.
Go back to even the beginning of his career too, when he had an injury, so he had to fight past that, and he had to earn the respect of the Celtics and later the Pistons too. I think that was highlighted very well, and that not thinly veiled at all, his dislike for the Pistons, Isaiah Thomas too. But I think it made him grow up, it made his team grow up, and I think it made him more of a leader. And I think a lot of that competitiveness that Michael had, it rubbed off on his teammates, and that's why they became the team that they did.
To make sure you're checking out the Standard Speaker every day. There's been, just something great in there, whether it's a look back or interview with some of the spring sports athletes who didn't have a chance to get on the field this spring. Dave, anything else I didn't hit on you want to get on while we have this opportunity?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm working on now, as a matter of fact, is a story on former local athletes who are in the medical profession. You know, they're getting their just due right now. I was able to track down some doctors who had their education, their start here. They played sports, nurses, emergency room nurses, physical therapists, to recent graduates. I'll use Celine Podlesny as an example. She just finished her career at Wilkes, outstanding career as a softball player at Hazleton area, went to Wilkes, had an outstanding, now she's going to be a nurse. And then, I was able to ask her what drove her into nursing too. And, the other athletes too that become physicians assistants too, and, top players. So you're going to be, it's interesting, some of their stories and what this whole pandemic has taught them, and in turn, what it should teach us as well.
Well, Dave, as usual, always well-spoken, and that's a great last word. I shouldn't say anything else. Dave is the Michael Jordan of these segments. I am the last guy on the Bulls bench who is just happy to get the championship hat, and it's always a pleasure, Dave, to be with you, and I appreciate it. Stay safe out there, keep the articles coming, and we'll talk to you soon.